Why are Microsoft employees never relaxed? Because they're always on edge. Thank you. I'm here till Thursday. Tip your waitress. Try the veal. But one of the most often asked questions I have gotten over many years is, what is the best beginner distribution of Linux? And we'll talk about that in a little bit more. But first, we're going to talk about privacy with Proton, the company that believes that privacy should not only be the default setting, but an inherent right to everyone. They have an encrypted at rest email, drive storage, calendar, and many more features like a VPN, a password manager, and more. Check them out with the links below. Before we go ahead and dive too deep, make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel to see more videos of mine, and check out all of my social media in the links below. So, what is the best distribution of Linux for beginners to use? Well, that is a question that is going to make many people's heads spin around, like the one person that was possessed in the movie The Omen, and possibly cause you to be as sick as that person ended up being and shoot across the room. The honest truth is, if you look at websites like distrowatch.com, you'll learn there are hundreds, if not thousands, of choices out there, and many of them are great. And if you go talk to anyone and ask for their opinion, you're going to get several different opinions, and some of them are going to be very opinionated. Sit down, Arch people. We get it. You use Arch. This is not what that discussion's about. What you do need to understand is it's more about, what is your goal here for an operating system? They're architected in different ways. I'll give you my opinions and perspectives on the different things, but I think the easiest thing to start with is that instead of looking at what distribution of Linux, look at what these distributions fall in under. What I mean by that is they mostly have a root distribution that they're based off of, and I classify them into 6 different categories. So you have your Debian-based, your Red Hat-based, your Arch-based, Gentoo-based, SUSE-based, I may have said that wrong, and then you have your independent and specialized distributions. So we'll talk about these for a second. I've taken the time to write out a list of some notes for the 6 different families, and I'm going to also pepper in vocally some additions that come to mind while I talk about these different things. And remember, this is also from my perspective in some of these cases, and what might be good for me may be not as good for you, and what may be good for you may not be great for me. But it's good to understand the different perspectives so you can have a better understanding of where you want to go in this adventure for yourself. So the first family of Linux we'll talk about is Debian-based distributions. They're known for their stability, extensive software repositories, and ease of use. They typically target a wide range of users, from beginners to advanced users. And in terms of key features that they have stability. Debian's strong focus on stability and long-term support, LTS, makes it ideal for production environments. With their large software repositories, if I can speak, Debian-based distros, especially Ubuntu, have access to vast repositories of free and open-source software. User-friendly. Distros like Ubuntu, Linux Mint, Pop! OS offer a polished, user-friendly experience with easy-to-use graphical interfaces and tools. Community support. Debian and Ubuntu have large, active communities providing extensive support through forums, wikis, and tutorials. So a lot of those tutorials actually for Ubuntu will work for Pop! OS and Linux Mint, so you don't have to worry about just those specific distribution notes. The regular updates. Well, distributions like Ubuntu offer both LTS, long-term support, versions for stability, and interim releases for those wanting newer features. I myself prefer LTS because I want stability. I'm on Pop! OS 22.04 LTS, and I have a few years of support with that, so I can gradually shift to a newer version, while they also backport some additions from newer ones, but it doesn't have maybe as bleeding of an edge, but I know my system is going to be incredibly stable. Now, cross-platform support. These distros often have good support for desktops, servers, and even cloud environments. You can go to AWS, Azure, WSL pretty much has Ubuntu as the default, and you can just get up and run with this operating system. Some examples of this distribution are Ubuntu, which is a fork of Debian, which is a little bit more polished than straight up Debian. Debian, of course, which is the granddaddy of this family here, and you can, configure Debian in any single way you want with the net installer. Pop! OS, which is the distribution I personally like and favor. I think it's the nicest one personally for me because it's easy for users to understand, and I come from a Mac background as well, so it kind of has this little bit of a Mac aesthetic that you may see very often when you're on my Twitch streams and you see how I fly through with the launcher and everything. And then, of course, we have Linux Mint as well. Now, it's important to know that Kali and a few other distributions are based on Debian as well, but we'll get specifically into Kali and all that later because I find them more as a unique purpose rather than lumping them into the Debian types of Linux. The next member of our family is going to be the Red Hat-based distributions. These are also known as RHEL, R-H-E-L, based distributions off of Red Hat Enterprise Linux. This is one of the older ones that's been around for quite a while. IBM recently acquired them and has kind of taken their name and put a little bit of it down the toilet, but that's for another video that we'll get into. But nonetheless, these are the types of distributions you will most often come across when you are working with Linux in a business. They are primarily used in enterprises and business environments due to their reliability, security, and commercial support. These distros focus on robustness and long-term stability. There are also some of the few distributions, specifically with Red Hat, that may have a cost affixed to them to actually use them properly. There's also Fedora and other distributions that are based on them that don't have an upfront cost, but that's something worthwhile to note. But if you're in a business, you may very often come into Red Hat Enterprise Linux. But also what's interesting to know is that AWS, Amazon Web Services, their distribution of Linux is based off of Red Hat from what I've experienced. So, key features here to take away: enterprise focus, RHEL, CentOS, Rocky Linux, Alma Linux, AWS Linux, and so on are highly favored in enterprise environments due to their stability, security features, and support contracts. You can actually pay for Red Hat to support the operating system and have Red Hat and engineers actually help you alongside doing that. Now, it's important to know you can do the same thing with Ubuntu and Canonical and all that, but Red Hat, they kind of, from my recollection, created this whole model, and they're world-renowned for their support and capability because of what Red Hat can offer an enterprise. Now, in terms of commercial support, RHEL offers, well, comprehensive commercial support, as I just mentioned. So that's why they're really well used in critical infrastructure. If you run into a bug with your own application, things like that has been designed, they can actually help you out if you pay for the right support model. Now, in terms of security, known for its strong security features, including SE Linux, which is Security Enhanced Linux, which provides mandatory access controls. Access controls are a huge thing in enterprise, especially when you're trying to be in compliant-driven environments. So, enterprise tools. It includes enterprise-level tools like Ansible, Red Hat Satellite, and OpenShift for automation, system management, and containerization. A lot of these tools are also available for the other operating systems, but Red Hat develops a lot of them. In fact, if you ever look at my virtualization software that I use when I'm running Twitch and other videos, and you happen to see me fire up a VM, or in my other videos that I'll be talking about, it's actually created by Red Hat. They just open sourced it. Long-term support. Red Hat-based distributions offer long-term support with a focus on backward compatibility and smooth upgrades. In fact, CentOS, if I recall, was designed around having a 10-year support model before, IBM kind of flushed that down. Again, another video, we'll talk about that. They have stable and predictable releases. Both RHEL and CentOS Stream emphasize a stable, well-tested release process with slower adoption of cutting-edge features compared to other distributions. So, they may not be cutting-edge, they may not be on the bleeding edge of things, but you can guarantee they're going to be rock-solid stable, and they've been well-tested. I'd even argue possibly a little bit better than Debian distributions, which are already pretty dang stable. Some example operating systems for this are RHEL, Red Hat Enterprise Linux. That's pretty much the premier Linux you're going to run into. CentOS, Alma Linux, Rocky Linux, AWS Linux, and a few others. Now, for the third member of the family of distributions of Linux, you don't even have to ask them what operating system they use. These users will tell you unprompted without you having the opportunity to even ask the question of which distribution of Linux they use. They will be the Arch users. Yes, there's running memes about this. In fact, I have an entire joke around this entire premise, which is that a crypto bro, a vegan, a CrossFit person, and an Arch user all walk into a bar. Who talks about their thing first unprompted? Be that as it may, Arch-based distributions are known for their simplicity, minimalism, and customization. They are rolling release type distros, providing access to the latest software without the need for reinstallation. So, when it comes to the features of an Arch operating system, Arch and its derivatives follow a rolling release model, which means continuous updates to the system without the need for new releases or reinstallations. Now, this has also lately become something that isn't unique to Arch, but Arch is most known for the rolling release type Linux, which is that you install it once, you get your update scripts and all that going, and then it'll just be always on the latest version. You don't have to worry about, like, say, Pop! OS or Ubuntu or Linux Mint or Red Hat, where you have these major release versions that you then have to plan to upgrade to. You just do your Pac-Man update, you know, whatever command you need to do, and you can get there. Now, there can be a lot of problems in terms of stability around Arch systems and all that. I know some of you Arch users, sit down. Don't deny it. It can happen. You get an update, you're sitting there for hours, trying to figure out how to fix it, going through the Arch wiki and everything like that. It happens. I don't care how good your update scripts are, it can happen. It's happened to me. With that being said, minimalism. Arch is designed to be minimal, giving users full control over what software and services are installed. Customization. It offers high levels of customization, as users can build the system from scratch, installing only what they need. Cutting-edge software. Arch's package repository, including the R, or Arch User Repository, provides access to the latest software versions and often ahead of other distributions. Arch Wiki is very useful to go in and find tweaks to applications or troubleshooting for other distributions of Linux, and I've gone through the Arch Wiki many times. The Pac-Man Package Manager. Simple and efficient package manager designed specifically for Arch Linux. It is a nice package manager. I will, not fault it for that. It is a great one. It's pretty much more in the advanced users. Arch is often recommended for advanced users who want to learn more about the internals of Linux and enjoy the DIY aspect of their system and customization and tinkering. Some examples of Arch are, well, of course, Arch, the base distribution, known for its DIY approach. Manjaro provides an easier and more friendly way to experience Arch. Manjaro's been preloaded on, like, my Pinebook Pro, and it does a pretty good job. I don't really have too many complaints about it, except for it can get kind of wonky sometimes too. But for a little bit easier use, it is pretty good for that. Endeavor OS, a community-driven Arch derivative with a focus on user experience. And then you also have Garuda, which is one of those ones a lot of people have been asking me to review, but it's basically just another Arch, Linux that you can have set up with some customizations, because there is a gamer edition version of it that has a bunch of the things pre-installed. But again, going back to one of the points I had earlier, it's more about how things are configured out of the box. You can do a lot of the same things that Garuda is doing on your own. You may just have to install it, whereas it has things pre-installed. With that being said, it's a worthwhile tinker once in a while if you want to get down that path. But if you really want to do a DIY and really learn how to use Linux, we'll talk about something a little bit later for that. So now we're on to our fourth member of our Linux family of distributions, and that is another pretty well memed distribution known as Gentoo. Now, Gentoo is, I would say, one of the fastest distributions of Linux, and we'll get into why in a second. It's actually named after the fastest breed of penguins out there. You can go look this up. And Gentoo distributions are highly customizable, just like Arch, and allow users to optimize their system to their specific hardware. Whereas Arch, builds everything on a binary. The reason why this is optimized to your hardware is Gentoo focuses on compiling software from sources, which offers flexibility but requires more effort, because your system is literally going to grab things from source and then compile it that way. Now, they have apparently added the ability for you to use binary packages, but at that point, where's the fun? Now, some key features here is that it's source-based. Gentoo compiles packages from source, allowing optimization for specific hardware and performance needs. It's literally built for your system as you configure it. Customizability. Well, it offers extreme flexibility, enabling users to build their system tailored to their preferences. Literally down to you're using an Intel or AMD, you can optimize it for that. Or you can tailor it to all sorts of things specific or unique to your system. The Portage Package Manager. I'm going to admit, it has one of the nicer package managers, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, Google actually used this in their Chromebooks. It works pretty well. It's a highly versatile and powerful package manager known for its dependency resolution and use of use flags, which allows for fine-tuning the installation of software packages. It's a rolling release. Like Arch, Gentoo is also a rolling release distribution, meaning updates are continuous and users always have the latest software versions. And in some ways, it can actually be a little bit more bleeding edge than Arch because you're literally grabbing the source packages to compile from, whereas Arch, somebody is usually compiling that and you're pulling from a repository, though Arch is pretty fast at getting those things in. Now, it's more for advanced users. Best suited for advanced users who want full control over their system configuration, including kernel and hardware optimizations. Like I said, it's one of the fastest distributions out there, but not one I generally recommend to most people, but it's a fun one to play with if you want to get around to that. So some examples are, well, Gentoo, the main distribution, a lot of customizability there. And then you got, I'm going to probably butcher this name, Sabayon, Gentoo-based, but designed to be more user-friendly with pre-compiled binaries. So, Gentoo is a pretty interesting one to use. Despite all the Richard Stallman memes you might come across that say install Gentoo and possibly losing a weekend or a week. So if you have a social life, don't use this one. Now we have the fifth member of our family of Linux distributions, and that's the SUSE-based. Somebody's going to say I got that wrong. I tend to butcher this name. But SUSE-based distributions are known for their enterprise-level reliability and strong tools for system administration. They are used in both enterprise and community settings. The honest truth is, from what I've experienced, it's more of a German and European well-known distribution. It's really great, though. I liked it, and I tested it for a while, and I don't really have complaints for it, except for it's not that popular from what I've noticed outside of Europe, but still a great operating system to go and try, and that whole ecosystem is nice, too. So, key features of them: enterprise focus. SUSE Linux Enterprise, also known as SLES, is used in enterprise environments with a focus on stability, scalability, and business needs. Has the Zypper package manager. SUSE uses Zypper, a powerful package manager with dependency resolution focused on stability. YAST, which SUSE's unique system management tool, yet another setup tool. You gotta love these names in Linux for all the tools and everything. We have a little bit more fun with it. Provides a comprehensive suite for configuring hardware, services, and software with a user-friendly interface. It has a hybrid release model. It's one of the more interesting ones when it comes to this. Has OpenSUSE Leap, which offers a stable, fixed release cycle, similar to Red Hat Enterprise Linux or Ubuntu LTS, while OpenSUSE Tumbleweed offers a rolling release model for cutting-edge software, similar to Arch and, even Gentoo, but some people complain that things can break because they radically change the way they configure the system. That's at least from some of my friends that have used it. Some people do enjoy it. To each their own. It also has the Btrfs file system. OpenSUSE is known for its early adoption of the Btrfs file system, which offers snapshot and rollback capabilities, making it easier to recover from system issues. I do like the Btrfs file system, but it's not really that common to install out the box with. Usually, most Linux distributions opt for extended 4 these days. We can get more into file systems and all that another time. Of course, enterprise support. SUSE Linux Enterprise offers robust commercial support similar to Red Hat Enterprise Linux. Some examples of this, well, just like we mentioned, OpenSUSE Leap, OpenSUSE Tumbleweed, and SUSE Linux Enterprise. So, you have some options out there to try. Now for the 6th and final category in our Linux family of distributions. These are basically your independent and specialized distributions. These kind of don't fit into any mainstream categories and are often designed for niche purposes or unique philosophies. So, some of these that would fall into it is Slackware, which is honestly one of the oldest distributions that's still actively maintained, and one of the ones I first started with, but it kind of just has its own thing because it started out early. But it's known for its simplicity and minimalism. I think it's worth at least trying out because you get to go see, you know, how things, I wouldn't say were, because it's still a lot different than it was, but basically the distribution that started it all. We've got Kali Linux, which is a tailored for penetration testing and security professionals. I do not recommend this as a daily driver. I don't know why everybody decides to do this. I say that it's best to install as a virtual machine on your Windows, Mac, or Linux box, or keep it in a flash drive, and then deal with it that way rather than having it on bare metal. Now, if you're looking for a bare metal distribution, you can use Parrot OS. And Parrot OS and Kali, if I'm not mistaken, both run on Debian. So they have that entire, you know, pedigree of things. Parrot OS has a distribution as well that doesn't have the penetration tools. It's a really nice operating system. I have it on my pen testing laptop that I used to tinker with at times. But Kali, keep it to a VM and everything like that. And Parrot OS, I'd say, is probably what you want to install bare metal. It has almost all the tools. Because remember what I said earlier on, it's more about how things are pre-configured out the box than it is really much of a huge difference. They have a lot of the same tools and everything, and if there's anything missing in Parrot OS that Kali has, it's a sudo apt install away. You just use the package manager to grab things. You also have Tails, which is a privacy-focused Linux that runs off a USB drive. We're going to get more into this another time about with Hunix, which we'll talk about a little bit. We'll talk at the high level here. Tails is not an operating system I recommend to everyone just install on a flash drive. You see all these people like, oh, well, I use Tails on a flash drive, and that's how I access Tor. The idea around it is more so that you're using computers like you're on the run, like an internet cafe or something like that, and that's amnesiac, doesn't store anything on the actual computer. But if you're using the same trusted hardware all the time, you have Hunix, which is a distribution that's designed for Tor connections so that you have a gateway and a workstation. We'll talk more about that specific thing as well as Tails another time. But suffice it to say, if you're doing things repeatedly on the same device and you want to do Tor and all that and be private, just use Hunix and use the amnesiac features with it. You're more than fine. And Hunix pairs perfectly well with the next thing that falls into this unique and independent category here, which is QubesOS. I love this operating system. I'm going to be talking about it again in another video. This deserves its own video in and of itself. Focuses on security through isolation via virtual machines. Like, everything is isolated on this operating system. So you have like your base hypervisor running everything, but then you have all the things coming in for networking, going to a firewall VM that all the other devices then connect to, and then you can create a VPN VM so that it connects into the firewall. Then you can have all your USB devices go through a USB VM. So the idea being that if anything is ever compromised, it's ideally just stuck in that VM, and you have your own local area network inside the laptop, so it would either have to worm through the LAN or do a hypervisor break. Really nice operating system. I love tinkering with it. Definitely for advanced users. Do not use this if you're a beginner. And then you have Solus, built for desktop users who prioritize performance and simplicity. But remember, Each Linux family offers unique strengths, offers different user needs, and they range from everyday desktop use to enterprise to your niche one-off cases. But there isn't really one distribution that's better than another. They all have their strengths. They all have their purpose. Try a little of all of them. See what fits you best. You may find, hey, you want to use this one for that and that one for this. I use about 6 or 7 distributions depending on what I'm calling for, or sometimes just my mood. And then I can also use Cubes OS, and I can have different VMs with different ones all the time, or run a virtual machine with different things. So go out there, try all the Linux distributions. Don't worry about what's so much the best one for beginners. Try a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I personally like Pop! OS Linux. I think it's great for beginners. Some people like Linux Mint. Some people like Ubuntu. Some people get a Raspberry Pi and put Raspbian, which is just called Raspberry Pi OS, I believe, these days. Try them all out. See what fits you best. Don't get hung up on what's the best. Try them out. Do a little distro hopping to start out. And eventually get to the point where you're like me and you're just like, I got this one, I know about that one, I can use these different collection of things, and you know their purposes. But with that being said, happy hacking, go tinker out to your heart's content, and enjoy your Linux journey. Because this is fun. You get to really take control of your computer. But I love all y'all, happy hacking, and I'll see you around.